Welcome, friends, to Know Before You Go for the third Sunday of Easter. I'm Father Andrew Carl Wisdom, Vicar for Mission Advancement. And I greet you today from our Dominican parish, St. Vincent Fair in River Forest, Illinois. You know, friends, the gospel this weekend of the road to Emmaus never fails to charm. On so many levels, it speaks parallels to our different stages on our own road of faith. And we do have those moments like those disciples of unexpected breakthroughs where all of a sudden we see what we hadn't seen before. We see with new eyes and thus deepen our intimacy with the risen Christ. I was talking to a parishioner at our church in Denver, and she was humorously sharing with me how she had all these wonderful aspirations and focused goals for Lent. But as it turned out, those 40 days for her ended up all over the place. She was going to be doing a daily rosary. She's going to be having a weekly in-depth spiritual reading session. And she had these scheduled quiet time with the Lord. But it didn't all pan out. She said to me, "You know, Father, it was anything but an orderly Lent. I was not prepared for Holy Week, not prepared the way I planned to be prepared. But in the end," she said with a smile, "I ended up more in love with the Lord than I thought possible." Then she added, "You know, it's true, Father. God does right straight with crooked lines." I was thinking that line is the most inspired summary of what Jesus is trying to do today as he joins the conversation of the two disciples on the road to Emmaus, unbeknownst to them. Now they update this seemingly uninformed stranger of the dashed hopes in a prophet mighty in word and deed named Jesus, who was sentenced to death and crucified just a few days before. They had hoped he was going to be the one to redeem Israel. Now they relay that some women from the group had gone to the tomb, but he wasn't there. But there were angels there, and they said he was alive. They don't know what to make of it. They're dejected and downcast. Now the still unrecognized Jesus, listening attentively, finally says kindly, but pointedly, "Oh, how foolish you are. How slow you are to believe. Don't you know from what the prophets said that it was necessary for the Christ to suffer in this way?" Then Jesus proceeds to explain the scriptures to them in a way that fires them anew with new understanding, showing God in the suffering, death, and resurrection of Jesus, writing straight with crooked lines. Not only had this been foreshadowed by the prophets of old, but Jesus himself had foretold his fate to his apostles, who found it hard to believe. Now these two disciples, seeing with new eyes, their hearts burning anew, want this knowledgeable stranger to stay with them, to help them to understand more. But rather than telling them more in words, Jesus does it through prayer, in the blessing and the breaking of bread at their dinner table. And in that moment, that's when their eyes are opened to who this stranger is and to the meaning of that mysterious ritual of remembrance that surely they heard about from the night of the Last Supper. Friends, from words that remind to prayer that causes recognition, both open the eyes of the heart. How foolish you and I can be, and how slow we can be to believe when things don't go our way. When our expectations of people and events are disappointed, we can become downcast and dejected. We're ready to throw in the towel. We're tempted to think that all is lost and all failed. And what does Jesus do? He poses the same fraternal correction to us. Did you not realize that it had to happen that way? Haven't I told you? Trust me. That I come to rescue you from sin and slavery of the things of the world, to give you a second chance, and that I would be there to love and protect you. And what did I ask of you in return? To believe in me, to see as I see, to love as I love, and then to go out and share the freedom of this faith in me. Now, how do we do this? How do we get back to that? By again taking time with the word daily, that our hearts too might be burned with the recognition of the truth. To return to daily prayer, that our hearts too might recognize the one for whom we truly hunger, not all those substitutes. St. Augustine's insights come to mind. He says the scriptures should melt our hearts. And of the Eucharist, he says God is not transformed into us, but we into him. Now, friends, we each have our own various roads to Emmaus when confusion reigns, where it's not clear why things are happening as they are. My nephew just lost his long-sought, coveted job at Facebook. A friend of the order's energetic and always healthy wife is suddenly struggling with mysterious balance issues. A benefactor's son takes 2 steps forward in his recovery, and then all of a sudden 7 steps backwards. Why is it happening? Where do we look? For strength on our various roads to Emmaus, the risen Christ offers to feed all of us with his very self, from the twin tables of the Word and of the Eucharist. But God can't do all the work for us. We have to seek intentionally these free and unconditional gifts to strengthen us on our daily Emmaus walk and to strengthen others on that same walk all around us. You know, it's fitting that the Emmaus story crescendos with God doing that most intimate of things, sharing his blessed and broken body with our blessed and sometimes broken lives. And then he vanishes. Or does he? No. He lives on in communion within the burning hearts of the 2 seeking disciples. In this very moment, friends, God is writing straight with crooked lines in your life and in mine. In truth, they're not really crooked, except from our vantage point. But seen from the divine eyes, the path goes one direction, straight to God's heart. Do not our hearts burn at times in sudden moments when we recognized, oh my gosh, God was there. He was walking with me. You see, like those 2 disciples, when we persevere in the conversation on the road to Emmaus, we don't just receive God in communion. We become a communion with God. God bless your Easter season.